Well, how about a machine that stops lazy journalists constantly using the word cool to try and impress young people? Booyakasha.
Who's making the headlines today? Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 Have I Got News For You moments. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're savouring the funniest and most memorable moments from the long-running Topical news quiz. Guest hosts, one-off games, classic quips and heated exchanges are all in contention for this one.
I mean, why would anyone believe the Russians could be corrupt?
Number 10, Benedict Cumberbatch takes over.
You all want to know the answer?
Yes, we do.
Of course, since Angus Deayton parted company with the show, the guest hosts have been one of the biggest draws.
Chief of the North Korean Army, Ri Yong-ho, had a message for the nation, adding LOL smiley face.
But Benedict Cumberbatch was better than most. Kicking off Series 40, Cumberbatch had recently become a household name for his role in Sherlock, but he hadn't yet been branded as the sexiest man alive. Still, with Victoria Coren Mitchell and John Richardson as guests, he was on top form. His reaction to the Chilean miners was a highlight, as well as the many Sherlock puns.
Let's move on to round two. The round of the Baskervilles.
Number 9, Brian Blessed on Petrol. There will never be a noisier national treasure than this guy. Hosting the show for the first time, Blessed passionately yells his way through the topics of the day.
Osama bin Laden's son, Dave. No.
Finding laughs with every punched-up punchline, Brian strikes gold when the conversation shifts to the petrol crisis.
There really is a petrol crisis when motorists in Scotland start panic buying, with some putting in as much as £5 worth.
Starting with a slight against the Scottish, he goes on to read the headlines as only he can. It's about time we got a slot on the 10 o'clock news, don't you think?
Now, newspapers have been doing their bit to calm motorists with headlines like, Petrol! We're running out!
Number 8, Anne Widdecombe versus Jimmy Carr.
You can dream on too, right.
Anne Widdecombe was a sitting MP when she hosted the show for a second time, but after this episode, she vowed never to return again. With a political legacy including the opposition of LGBT issues, as well as supporting blasphemy laws and the death penalty, her reputation preceded her, and the panel had a field day.
Oh, wait, is this going to be like sort of Mary Poppins, where you're really strict at the beginning, and then we grow to love you as you...
Anne barely tolerates team captains Ian Hislop and Paul Merton, but she saves most of her scorn for Jimmy Carr. Naturally, Carr responds with sarcasm and innuendo.
Go on, off your pop.
Number 7, Fruitcake or Loony with Nigel Farage.
I think it's time for a game of Fruitcake or Loony.
Drawing on a David Cameron comment aimed at UKIP supporters, Stephen Mangan is the driving force for this moment, posing as a panel show host for a quiz with a difference.
Nigel Farage, UKIP party.
Although not wishing to label his party faithful as either, Farage plays along in good humour, all the while seemingly brilliantly bemused.
Anyone?
I'm going to go for Loony.
It's the wrong answer. It's actually a trick question. He's not a fruitcake nor a loony. He's a closet racist.
And despite the shocking summaries given to each supporter, the smile never leaves Nigel's face. Number 6, Ian Hislop versus John Prescott.
Is he ready?
Definitely, yes.
What would you say if you thought he wasn't?
That was about a 5 on a sincerity-ometer.
To the 2015 election, and John Prescott's on the panel for a debate that's even more politicised than usual. The Labour manifesto is hot off the press, only some party members seem unsure about what's in it.
It only came out about 24 hours ago, isn't it? It's a bit much to push these people to say, do you remember everything?
John, perhaps you could talk us through the key Labour promises. I'll stop you when we've got enough.
So, Victoria Coren Mitchell riles Prescott by downplaying his pledge cards. And then it's over to Ian, who gets into a heated argument with the former Deputy PM. The bickering only subsides when John sends Hislop an ominous look. This is not a man to be messed with.
I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Number 5, Boris Johnson gets confused.
When I first appeared as a guest on this show, I complained that the whole thing was scripted and fully rehearsed. I'd now like to complain in the strongest possible terms that it isn't.
As guest or host, you can always rely on Boris Johnson for a gaffe or two. Here, he stumbles through the odd one out round, turning what should be a simple answer into an epic struggle.
I'm trying to be fair to all of you. You've all done exceptionally well on this question.
The discussion on shoes quickly turns into a surreal ramble, which has Paul Merton questioning the very fabric of time and space. And while Johnson eventually pulls the chaos to a close, the panellists and audience are left wondering what the heck just happened.
This is like a very, very cheap edition of Doctor Who, where he just travels around in the studio.
Number 4, Ian told me. October 2011 saw Jeremy Clarkson lift a lengthy super injunction, enabling journalists to finally speak out about an alleged affair. But as this clip proves, it seems that the scandal was already hot gossip behind the scenes, and Paul Merton had a reliable source.
Did you know? Yeah, Ian told me.
He drops Ian Hislop in it, thereby potentially putting his colleague into legal trouble. One perfectly timed phone call later, and Ian goes quite quiet all of a sudden. Number 3, Paul's unfunny joke.
So prepare for the outbreak of anarchy now as we kick off round 2 with the game traditionally featured in round 3. You see, we just don't care tonight.
It's quite rare that Paul Merton gets it wrong, but here he manages to mangle 2 jokes during one odd one out round, prompting awkward murmurings from the audience.
Swampy's got a tree growing out of his head. I don't know why I bother saying that. Should I go for 3?
So, Paul sets out for a hat trick before realising it's impossible. In a few short seconds, he digs himself out of a hole and majestically mocks Angus Deayton in the process. Genius.
I can't think of anything that's not funny.
Number 2, Ian Hislop versus Piers Morgan.
Just thought I'd say that, in case the viewers got the wrong idea by this vindictive attack on me, personally. Carry on.
You're feeling a bit vulnerable.
Piers Morgan can be a controversial character even at the best of times, but here we see the former newspaper editor put under intense scrutiny in the form of Ian. Angered by Piers' reporting techniques, Hislop traps his opponent in a brutal battle of wits. And there's only one winner.
You see, Piers? So that's comedy.
Morgan mutters a few feisty lines, but Ian has an answer to everything. In the end, Morgan resorts to a thinly veiled threat, before sparking an ill-advised popularity contest with the audience.
Do you like him? Anybody actually like him?
Number 1, Angus Deayton's sex scandal.
Which is also published under the title Stephen Byers' Autobiography.
Oh, it could be a list that you have for room service.
Final episodes can be an emotional affair, but Angus Deayton's was far from sentimental. The original Have I Got News For You host was dismissed from the show in 2002, when news broke of his involvement in cocaine-fueled relations with a prostitute. His last ever episode came following a second scandal, but the most memorable moments are from an earlier episode, when the story first emerged.
Really? Oh, what was I on at the time?
Angus can sort you out.
Naturally, Ian brings the article to recite from, while Paul goes to even greater measures to ridicule his host.
Go to all that kind of effort is just unbelievable.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo UK and subscribe for more great content.